Hey folks, Ben from Snows here again with this time the Brass Monkey 36 litre dual zone fridge freezer. This is a really affordable compacted dual zone fridge freezer with wheels on the back so it's easy to transport, and it comes with Bluetooth connectivity. The Brass Monkey's 36 litre fridge weighs in at about 14 kilos. Measurements on the outside are about 72 centimetres from the ends of the handles here, end to end. 36 centimetres in depth and about 36 centimetres in height as well. It's made of a polypropylene and ABS plastic, so it's an all plastic exterior. The lid, all the sides and everything is all plastic. A little bit of a tour around the outside for you. So this side here we can see we've got a vent here where the handle is. There's a latch under here so you can open the lid, and wheels at the back here. These are sort of rubbery wheels. We'll go into a bit more on that. If I spin it around this way, have a look at this side here, we've got a handle. Now these handles have got a little magnet in there so that if it is in the back of the car, this isn't tapping all the time, it secures on the bottom. And they're not really tough handles. They're going to do the job, but if you're comparing this to a lot of other fridges in the market, this is a lighter weight handle, so I'm not sure I'd rely on that to tie it down too securely. You could use it, but just be wary of how tightly you wrench the straps down. You've then got the wheels at the bottom here, and I'll just pull this up and show you underneath. So these are just rubber wheels with a metal bar that runs along here to secure it in place. So there's a longer handle, we'll show you at the other end shortly, so you can use it with these wheels. And then on the bottom of the fridge here, there's no mounting points or anything. This is a hole that goes to a bung that we'll show you shortly. There's just little rubber feet here, so it sits quite flat when you mount it in your vehicle. We keep spinning around, try to remember which side we're up to. This one here, the other wheel there, nothing more to see there. Vent where the compressor is, and then we come around to this end here. We've got one power point at the bottom here. For 12 and 24 volts, you get a transformer that comes with it. We'll show you that shortly, so you can power this up to 40 volts as well. The vent where the compressor is, and then you've got a longer handle at this end here. So once again, these have got magnets in it, so you can secure the handle like that against the body of the fridge so it's not bouncing around. If you want to use it in a wheeled manner, you've got an extended handle there so you can lift it up and wheel it around. So there's not many fridges out there that have a wheeled function. This is one of the only ones that we've got. Above that, we've got the control panel. I'll go on a bit more on how to use that shortly when we power it up, but you do have a little USB output here so you can charge your devices, phones or tablets directly from the fridge if you like. Moving across to the top of the fridge, plastic lid here. Now this is where one spot where maybe some of the costs have been cut so that there's a nice affordable fridge. This lid doesn't actually have like a secure latch that holds it down. You just pull the lid up from this point here, and it locks into these little ridges here. So this ridge here lines up with a notch which comes to the other end of the lid up here. These little raised points here, so that's what locks the lid in place. So it doesn't have a nice secure latch to sort of secure it in place. And if we look at the hinges at the back here, they're just plastic sort of lugs that go into here, and there's nothing to sort of secure this lid. It sits, when it rolls backwards, it just kind of sits against the body of the fridge here. So I don't think you'd want to put too much force backwards on this too often. Probably ideally, if I had one of these, I'd probably prefer to actually have the lid resting against something else in the vehicle than relying on it doing this all the time, because it's probably over time going to be a point where that could fail. Moving inside the fridge here, we have got 36 litres of volume, 55 centimetres from end to end, 27 centimetres from front to back. It's about 28 centimetres from top to bottom here at the deepest point. Maybe take a little bit off to allow for these bits in the lid, and about 11 centimetres above the shelf here. Once again, taking a bit off for the lid. Just one thing I forgot to mention on the lid is the seal that runs around the edge here. This is just a foam seal, and that lines up with this little ridge that runs around the top of the fridge here to secure or to stop the cold air from escaping from inside the fridge here. Features inside the fridge, you've got an LED light which features just around the front here, and it runs from this point to this point, so when it's on you can get light in both sides of the fridge there. A removable divider, this just slides out. It's full of insulation, this divider here, and it's just got a notch here that lines up with these notches here, so it slides into place. A little bit, I'll show you a little bit on how to sort of use it as dual zone or single zone shortly. And then on this side here, there is a bung in the bottom of the fridge here, so that goes out to that hole that I showed you before, so you can rinse this out and all the water easily runs out of the fridge. And in terms of usable space, 2 litre milk bottle fits in there easily, so there's plenty of height for that, but there is a bit of a barrier when it comes to 1.25 litre bottles or wine bottles. There's a champagne bottle here. It does sit above the edge there, so the other downside is you can't really lie them down either. This is going to be the side that is the fridge side if you're using it as dual zone, so a little bit tight for bottle space inside this fridge here, so better for cans and the likes. And the other main thing to note in this fridge here, and another point that probably keeps the price down to that really friendly price point, is that there's no baskets inside here. So what that means that if you do have a heavy bottle like this inside the fridge and you do decide to use it on rough roads, this is going to be bouncing directly on the lining inside the fridge here. The more expensive fridges that you buy will have a basket inside, and this is bouncing against the basket, so the edges of the fridge are a bit more protected. So one thing to think about, if you're using this on nice flat roads, probably not a problem. If you're going to be using it on corrugations, you might want to have a think about how you might be able to just protect the bottom of the fridge if you do have heavy things inside. Let's power it up and move to how to use the control panel. Now, when you buy the fridge, you get this little box here, and inside the box you get 12-volt cable, which you can take the little plug off the end here and turn it into a merit cable if you like. So it's a cigarette plug or a merit cable. And you also get a 240-volt transformer here. So this is what you need to use if you're going to run it from home. So it plugs into your 240-volt socket, and that plugs into the same 12 or 24-volt socket in the end of the fridge. And you also get a little user manual here. Gives you a bit of detail on exactly how to use it, battery cutout, voltages, etc., etc. So make sure you consult that if you're not sure about how to use the features on your fridge. Now let's plug it in and we'll show you how it operates. Okay, we plug it in and the control panel beeps, it flashes, and that's gone off. It does have a memory, so it goes back to the same setting it was the last time you had it on. Now, to turn this on, we hold down, this is all touch screen by the way, so we don't need to press, we just hover our hand over it. I'll hover our finger over it. This is the power button here. We hover over that for 3 seconds and the fridge will fire up. So we've got 2 different zones there. Now I'm just going to open the lid here because I want to show you how these sort of 2 zones operate independently or dependently of each other. Bit of a tour around the control panel here first. We've got a little settings button here. We'll show you more on that shortly. Plus and minus buttons for each compartment. Now this little L shape here indicates the compartment on this side here because this is shaped like an L. We've got a shelf here above the compressor. The compartment above that has a square which correlates to the compartment on this side of the left side because it's more of a square shape. There's no cutouts inside that, so that's how you know which compartment you're working with. And each of those has its own temperature readout, so that's showing the current temperature inside each compartment. If we use the plus and minus buttons here, we change the set temperature. So this is showing, I'm going to set that at say -5 degrees, and I'm going to set this one at 5 degrees. So I've now set that one at 5, this one at -5. It flashes and then goes back to the internal temperature again. Now the top setting has got a little bit more going on, little Bluetooth light there to indicate that you can't turn that on or off, but Bluetooth is functional on the fridge. Below that, battery meter is showing full at the moment because we've got it plugged into 240 volts, so it's got a total of 14.3 volts going in at the power point for the fridge. And a couple of other things going on here. We've got a little max word there. Now, we can change this setting if we come back down to the settings button here. We press it once and the max setting will start to flash. If we press the settings button again, it goes to eco. Max is putting the compressor in sort of overdrive. It'll run flat out for much longer to get the temperature of the fridge down quicker. Eco means it won't work as hard, so it's going to conserve your battery power. So have it on max when it's plugged into 240 volts, but once it's reached that temperature, put it back on eco so that you can save your battery power. To the right here, we've got an H. Below that is an M and an L. So this is the battery protection mode. So we can change that by holding down on the settings buttons or just hovering over the settings buttons for 3 seconds until that H starts to flash. We can see that flashing there now. Press that again, changes between low, medium and high, and your user manual will tell you just what cutout voltage that is set at so that you can protect your battery, and the fridge cuts out when your battery actually hits a certain level, a certain voltage. I think I've realized I've just mentioned that there's a specific voltage mentioned in the user manual here for the battery cutout, but they don't actually specify a voltage here, but there's a bit of information on this page of the user manual that sort of gives you a guide on when to use the high, medium or low battery settings. Basically they're saying when it's connected to your car, use the high, but if you've got a portable pack, maybe use it to medium or low so that it cuts out at a different voltage. But you're not going to get specific voltages from that. Now, onto how this works as a single or dual zone function. At the moment, I've got both both zones on here. If I remove this divider here and we watch what happens with the control panel here, this zone, so the L zone, which is the right hand zone closest to the control panel here, cuts out. That means that this fridge is now operating as a fridge, and it's this end here that is cooling the entire fridge, not the cooling elements at this end here. So if you want to use it as a freezer, you're probably asking a fairly big job of it for this end of it to cool or to freeze the whole thing. If I put this back in, we can see that this now fires up and both ends are now functional again. We can actually turn the far component off, so this square end here, we can turn it off if we just want to use half the fridge by holding down on the plus and minus. That will then turn off. So now it's just this end, the compressor end of the fridge, that's running, and that's going to cool down to the setting that we've got that at there now at the moment. One thing to note, that if we want to, we've come back to the middle here, I want to show you what happens when we remove this divider here, because when we remove this, the fridge reverts to using the cooling element at this end here, but we've turned this end off at the moment. So what happens if we have another look at the control panel, if I remove this divider, it goes to this end here, but the fridge, you can't tell now, but the fridge is actually shut down because it's saying it wants to go back to running the cooling elements at this end, but we turned that end off, so the fridge doesn't work. So if you want to use it as a single zone, you need to make sure that this end is switched on. So if I turn that back on and then remove the divider again, we'll see that this end turns off and this end now is cooling the entire fridge. Now, another important element to notice is that this compartment here, the far end, can never be colder than this end here. So this end closest to the control panel is the one that needs to be the freezer. So we can see we've got that set to -5 at the moment. If I now say I want to use the large compartment as a freezer, I can go to the same setting, but I can't go any lower than this compartment is set here. So I'm going to have to set it all at a freezing temperature, or use this compartment at this end as a fridge, so the larger compartment is a fridge, and the L compartment here, or the shelf compartment, as the freezer. And that's how to use the control panel. Now you can get accessories for your Brass Monkey fridges. They do their own slides, and they also have these covers here which have a little bit of extra insulation to go around the outside. So it's probably a good addition for the Brass Monkey fridge, because the insulation might not be quite up to what some of the other fridges are. This is going to add a little bit of extra insulation for you, also a bit of extra storage, so probably a good addition to your fridge. Now the last thing I want to talk about is the compressor, because that's is a main focus of a lot of fridges. Now, this isn't a brand name compressor, it's just what they call a high efficiency DC compressor. I'd say it's quite noisy. I can hear this here now. It's probably one of the noisier compressors that I've used. I can hear it whirring. There's probably a fan inside there, and it sounds more like your fridge at home would sound. That doesn't mean it doesn't suit you, it's just that the price is a little bit lower, and it's probably going to suit a user that's, like I said earlier, is on flat ground or just running around town, or really only uses it on the occasion. If you really thrash your fridge and use it for hardcore four-wheel drive touring, it's questionable whether this is going to sort of see you through those sort of scenarios, and you're probably better looking at maybe a slightly higher price pointed fridge. Now the compressor, they say, draws, Brass Monkey said 0.2 kilowatt hours over 24 hours, and if you kind of work that backwards to amps, it works out to about 0.7 amps per hour, so it's roughly in line with what most fridges are. You might find that in a really hot car, it's going to draw more amps than a fridge that's perhaps got a slightly higher or better performing insulation in it, but you pay a lot more for those fridges, and this fridge, or the whole Brass Monkey range, represents really good value for money. I wouldn't call them cheap fridges. They're worth every dollar you pay for them. It's probably just a different user that's going to prefer this fridge, particularly for the budget friendly, or for those who are probably just sitting on the black top. That is the Brass Monkey 36 litre dual zone fridge freezer. You can check these out online at snowies.com.au, where you can ask us any questions you want, or pop your questions down below. Subscribe to our channel for all of our latest information, or check out some other fridges like this one down here.